Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate, and today we are going to be discussing the remnants, well, not exactly the remnants, but Tropical Depression Claudette as it continues to move on through the southeast, as well as a big severe weather threat that will be occurring near the Mississippi River Valley heading off into the Great Lakes. But before we get started, I'm going to have to ask you all to take the time to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel to stay up to date with all my content. Also, hit the notification bell as well. Like the video, please, so that we can get this information out to as many people as possible with YouTube's algorithm. That would be greatly appreciated as well. And let's get straight into the video. I have timestamps in the description, so if you want to skip through specific parts of the video, go to specific parts you want to see, feel free to do so. But here's the interesting thing here. We actually have a GIF of the satellite imagery as of right now, and we can see one of two things. We can see, first off, Claudette right here with all these bands swirling around it, the tropical depression that is expected to intensify further into a tropical storm prior to it escaping the United States, which is pretty interesting to say the least. And then you also have the leftover of the MCV, or the mesoscale vortex that was moving on through the Central Plains last night, and that'll be basically the main issue heading into the Midwest with some big time severe weather over there. So real quickly, let's actually take a look at Radar Omega and take a look at the general radar across the United States. Now, I only do this for this instance because you can see here's the leftover severe weather threat that's moving on through into Iowa and Missouri at the moment. This will be kind of fizzing out a little bit, and a new batch of severe thunderstorms will be forming across into Iowa and Missouri. You can see that here is the risk from the Storm Prediction Center that I have outlined. The dark green lines anywhere within that circle is a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. The yellow is a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, and the orange is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. You can see that this orange here, this enhanced risk, actually includes places like Davenport, Peoria, Chicago, Fort Wayne, Toledo, even Detroit gets into the action. And so they are definitely going to want to watch out for this severe weather threat as this continues to move on through. Strong damaging winds is the likely factor with this, and upwards of 58 miles per hour, but there could be some instances where it's higher than that. So I'd highly recommend that if you live over in these areas, you get some sort of sturdy structure so that you'll be fine throughout, because some strong damaging winds can topple trees and power lines. And if you get in the path of those toppled objects, they could potentially do damage. So if you're in a sturdy structure, especially to get away from tornadoes, that would be highly preferred. And then we also go down to the south. You can see here, we saw the satellite version of Claudette, but why not the radar version of Claudette? Look at this. You can see the classic swirl with this tropical system as it moves about. Broad rotation right within here. You also have some of its bands that are extending further out into the coast. And so it's pretty interesting to see here from this tropical system as to how it's showing up on radar, because there's only so much we can see off of satellite. And so this is pretty cool to witness. There was a tornado watch that was in effect for some of these areas, but it doesn't look like there is any more, which is the good news. However, we could potentially see some more activity later on this evening, and potentially new tornado watches issued for that general vicinity. And we'll talk about that here within the slide presentation. So then again, here is your risk for severe weather. The 1 out of 5 indicated in green, 2 out of 5 indicated in yellow, 3 out of 5 in orange. So you have your marginal in green, your slight in yellow, and your enhanced in orange. And so if you guys live in these areas, specifically anywhere near these populous areas indicated at the top part of your screen, I would highly advise watching out, because you have the potential for some strong severe weather here today. Here's the tornado risk here for you all. A 2% chance is indicated in the green, 5% chance indicated in the brown. So wherever you live, whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius. So the chance for tornadoes is definitely possible here today. Now for the people who may not be impacted by all the severe storms, we're going to take a look at the high temperatures for you all. And you know, it's a common reoccurrence here since we're now starting to get into summer. Most of the United States is in the 80s and above, except for the northern plains here, even into the northern Rockies. they're at 60s all the way up into the mid 70s in some spots. But then some of these other areas and these brown shaded colors, even into the whites and blacks in some of these spots, that can indicate that there are temperatures in upwards of 80, 90, even triple digits near the whites and blacks. You can see here in California all the way through basically all of the Southwest here. There is extreme temperatures across the board, and they are in a very exceptional drought at the moment. I'm hoping to see if the tropical system that was over in the Pacific that actually turned out to be Tropical Storm Dolores, if that thing can get up the coast and potentially provide some relief for you all, then that would be a lifesaver. But just based off of the models, it's kind of half and half to say. So I'll update you guys at a later time if you guys could potentially see some monsoon conditions. All right, let's take a look at the simulated radar here, the simulated reflectivity. This is from the HRRR model. If you guys want to know the time, it's at the top right-hand corner right there. It will always be, that's where most of my information I put is going to be from now on in most of my videos. And here within the early afternoon hours, you can see there's your leftovers more or less from the day prior, the severe weather event that was over in the Central Plains. And you can see how this progresses as some prefrontal convection within the main line that starts to form over in Minnesota. And as this continues to move about, some of these thunderstorms could potentially try and route and potentially impact places in northern Illinois. Now, the thing of it is that there are some of the other models that are saying that these thunderstorms could potentially not be here or on a weaker stage. So I would advise of that too, especially with that trend as to how these thunderstorms are not looking as strong within some of those other models. But I decided to put one with the most amount of thunderstorms on, just so that you'd rather be safe than sorry in these instances. And so some areas in northern Illinois and in Iowa could potentially be seeing some thunderstorms by around the 5 o'clock Central Daylight Time hours, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later, but that's around the time frame in which you guys could see your first wave of thunderstorms. That'll be moving on through into Chicago at around that time frame, even a little bit later. And then you have two lines of storms here that start to form. So you have this original line that was over here from the severe setup the day prior, and then you have this new line of storms that form, as I was talking about, from Minnesota. That'll be impacting places of central Wisconsin, as well as southern Wisconsin, and areas in Iowa as well. As that progresses, you can see how this continues to move on through into Michigan, and basically all sorts of areas here across the board here in the Ohio River Valley, Great Lakes, and Mississippi River Valley areas. And that'll continue to move on through even into the overnight hours. We're past midnight here, and places like Detroit, places like Springfield and Peoria, Illinois, you guys will be getting some action. South Bend, Indiana, all the way over to Fort Wayne, you guys could potentially get some action even past midnight. And so definitely something that you guys are going to want to watch out for. Here's the convective available potential energy, the measure of warm air rising and cold air sinking in the atmosphere. So the displacement between the two can indicate how much energy there is in the atmosphere for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. You would want about 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE in order for you guys to get some strong severe storms, which would be indicated in the yellow or above. And in some of these areas, you do have that yellow. You even have some reds and purples in some spots, which would indicate above 2,000 joules per kilogram into the 3,000 and even 4,000 joules per kilogram vicinities. So you definitely have a lot of energy. The maximum amount of CAPE I see from this singular frame here within this specific time period, which would be at about 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, is 4,500 joules per kilogram. But this is from the NAM 3 kilometer model. This is really the tail between two different models for this event, because we have one model that looks like this, where it has this much amount of energy, and then you have the HRRR model that looks something like this, and this is a significantly less amount of CAPE here within some of these areas. So we're going to have to see as to how this continues to unfold, as to whether or not we'll have an event to where we have less amount of energy, or we'll have something of the latter to where we have more amounts of energy within a widespread area too. Now we're going to take a look at the wind gust swath here from the HRRR. This basically tells the peak wind gusts within specific spots, and the HRRR is a lot more localized with these thunderstorms. You can see right within here, it's a lot more localized with these damaging winds. Some of these could be in upwards of 80 miles per hour according to this model, but a lot of this is pretty localized, so we'll definitely have to watch out for the threat of that. But then if we take a look at the NAM 3-kilometer model, this is a lot more widespread with its damaging winds and wind gusts than upwards of 40 to even 50 miles per hour on a widespread scale here. The actual maximum amounts of wind speeds here from this NAM 3-kilometer run was in upwards of 64, almost 65 miles per hour here. And so I would definitely watch out for this as a widespread wind event as well, especially if the NAM 3-kilometer says as much as this with widespread damaging winds. The NAM 3-kilometer tends to favor a lot of damaging wind setups more than tornado setups, so we'll definitely have to keep that into consideration too. I would definitely watch out for these thunderstorms later on this evening. If you can get a storm that could get out by itself and become supercellular, that could be your main threat or your largest threat for tornadoes right there. I don't think it'll be within the second line that'll move on through in the overnight hours. I think that'll be strictly wind. And so your window of opportunity for tornadoes will most likely be that time frame of 2 o'clock Central all the way over to most likely 8 o'clock Central, right around that time frame. But you guys could still get something out of that past those times as well. All right, here's the day 2 convective outlook here for you all. 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here in the dark green, 2 out of 5 in the slight right here. And so whatever probability, well, it's not really a probability, I should say. If you guys are in any of these areas, I would watch out for this severe weather as well. And even if we take a look at the tornado risk here, a 5% chance for tornadoes. I know this has 2% signs up here, so you're going to have to ignore that for a bit. But trust me when I say that there is a 5% chance for tornadoes up here in the Northeast as well, in upstate New York, as well as northern portions of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then 2%, which extends all the way through down to the Ohio River near West Virginia and Kentucky, as well as Ohio. But it doesn't reach all the way over into places like Cincinnati and Dayton. You guys are out of the risk here for Monday. All right, let's get to our tropical update here. Here's Tropical Depression Claudette, and this is having a whale of a time. I will say that much. I mean, you saw from radar and satellite imagery, it looks like it was spinning and having a good grand old time. But I'll tell you, some of these people who've been been impacted by Claudette has probably not had a good time. With the amount of flooding that was going on, especially in the areas near Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. They were in multiple flash flood warnings, and we've been talking about it. We said that it's going to create a lot of rain. It's going to create a lot of impacts within some of these areas, and so all we have to do now is just more or less predict as to where this thing is going to move further, see where most areas could get impacted, and in this case, the National Hurricane Center has issued some tropical storm warnings here for the Outer Banks all the way down towards Wilmington. And then you even have a tropical storm watch near areas like Myrtle Beach. And so they're already being proactive about this and forecasting that this thing could potentially intensify into a tropical storm. And if we take a look at the forecast cone here, you can see this black circle with the D in the middle. That stands for a depression, tropical depression. So they're thinking by late tonight, it's still going to be a tropical depression. But then by Monday morning into Monday afternoon, they are really thinking that this thing is going to intensify into a tropical storm, especially with most of the thunderstorms coming off of the coast. They think that will most likely cause the tropical storm force winds as it continues to make landfall over the portions of the Carolinas. And as that continues to move on through into the coast, it looks like it'll stay far away from the Northeast, especially New England. They could get some bands from this tropical system as well, but nothing too significant to create major impacts. So that is the good news. And then I do want to real quickly talk about Dolores here. We did have that tropical system that did form. The last time I made a video, it was this. It was the Invest. I believe it was Invest 94E. and so it did form into a tropical storm, and it did make landfall over Mexico. It is a relatively weak storm at this moment, moving north at 12 miles per hour. As a matter of fact, it has become more or less a remnant now, and so I don't anticipate this to form into another tropical system anytime soon. It's just more or less kind of a brief update for you all as to what this thing is doing. So with Claudette, it does have 30-mile-per-hour winds. I believe it's 1,008 millibar pressure system, and it is moving off to the east. You can see the satellite imagery here as it's clearly moving off to the east-northeast in this instance, with a lot of thunderstorms around it. We'll take a look at the water vapor imagery here, and the main reason why the Carolinas and Georgia is in a slight risk is because you do have these bands of storms that are moving across, but that alone probably would have produced a marginal. So most of you are probably wondering, well, why is it slight? Well, it's because of this dry air that's seeping into the rear of Claudette. You can see this darker colors right within here. This indicates some very dry air that is seeping into the storm. Everything else that is this gray or even white, that's really strong moisture, or it's really moist in the atmosphere. And so you can see the clear displacement right within here and how it forms in within this line and seeps in with the rear of the line. And so that more or less is acting as if a boundary or a cold front system with a dry line set up to the rear, and that can create some very strong damaging winds localized within some of these areas. And so definitely something we're going to have to watch out for. But just by looking at the satellite imagery, you can clearly see the counterclockwise spin with this tropical system. It doesn't look all too, organized because obviously it's over land, but it's still something that we do have to watch out for, this main band of convection right here, to where if this thing can continue to move about, it can produce some strong damaging winds, and even the chance for quick spin-up tornadoes, brief tornadoes within the line. Similar to yesterday, there was a couple tornadoes that was in Alabama, and that created some huge impacts for some of those areas as well. So if we take a look at the spaghetti models to see as to where this is heading off, it follows very close towards the Outer Banks, even towards areas like Virginia Beach and Norfolk. And so I would watch out for that as well, especially for the chance for some storm surge to definitely be possible. And then it'll eventually head off out to sea into the Atlantic towards Nova Scotia and Newfoundland over into Canada. And so that's just one thing that I wanted to mention, is that according to the spaghetti models from the GFS and even the Euro model, they think that it'll most likely stay away from land here in this instance, and most likely head out towards Canada for some of these instances. But the one thing that I do want to mention is that some of the models from the Euro do think that the pressure will actually be sub 1,000 into the 999 millibar vicinity, maybe even to the 997 millibar vicinity. I'm actually looking through to see what the worst pressure is according to this, and they think that some of the model members think that this could even get as low as a 993 millibar low pressure system, which would be a decently strong tropical system moving on through. But as I said, not really huge impact to land, so, well, after it gets off into the open waters, and it does think that it will start to intensify once it gets into open waters, so I don't really think it'll be a huge impact to land until it gets off towards Canada. And then if we take a look at the multi-spaghetti model guidance here, you can see that most of these other spaghetti models do favor that this thing will head into the general vicinity of Norfolk, Virginia Beach, even into the Delmarva Peninsula in some areas, and that will go out to sea as well and head off through towards Canada into the northern Atlantic Ocean towards Greenland and stuff like that. So, leftovers, basically, that's what you all are getting over in the Carolinas. The total accumulation from this event shows that that's basically what you're getting. The light green is indicative of 1 to 2 inches of rain. Dark green is 2 to 4 inches. Some of these little yellows here indicate 4 to 6 inches of rain in some spots. So the threat for flooding is still possible. And on top of that, even areas in the Outer Banks could potentially see some storm surge amounts. I mean, look at this. This line right here from the North Carolina-Virginia border, from Virginia Beach all the way down to Cape Lookout, some storm surge amounts could get in upwards of 3 feet, which is pretty insane here. Seems how this is only a tropical depression or forecasted tropical storm to move on through. And so definitely some localized flooding is possible with this. And then even down from Cape Lookout down towards the Little River Inlet, 1 to 2 feet of storm surge. I would even say that down closer towards Myrtle Beach, there could be in upwards of a foot of storm surge in some of those spots. But then again, that's just basically 1 foot. It's like a higher wave, if you will, if you were at the beach, which you shouldn't be out at the beach anyways. Strong rip currents could be a factor with that. But, it's just if you imagine it as if you were at the beach and there wasn't a tropical system there, then you can just you can correlate that it would just be 1 foot higher wave. Now let's take a look at the HWRF model, the simulated radar or the simulated reflectivity from Claudette. And the interesting thing about the HWRF model is that this thing is really good at tracking where tropical systems most likely will end up. The intensity, you'd have to, it's a bit bullish, if you will, very strong, very over-exaggerated in some instances, except for this instance, which is actually, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty conservative compared to some of the other models like the GFS and the Euro. But for right now, we're going to take a look at the simulated reflectivity, and you can see how this thing kind of rotates as we continue to play the slides here. But a lot of rain here expected over Georgia, South Carolina, and the Carolinas towards the Appalachians. And as this continues to progress, you can see a new band of storms that'll form into the afternoon hours here by 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And as this continues to move about, this will really consolidate into that strong line that will consistently move further and further towards the east. You can see here towards Charleston and even places near Myrtle Beach that they actually start to get impacted towards the late evening hours. We'll actually go backwards and you can see there's the line that really starts to form with this. And then as this continues to move off to the east, that main line will start to head off the coast, but you still have some remnants off to the northeastern side of the rotation. The actual low-level rotation here from Claudette on the northeastern quadrant. And so for the most part, we're going to have some strong damaging winds with these storms, especially with most of these storms coming in from the coast. You can basically tell that most of this activity will be coming off from the coast due to that counterclockwise spin here. Now, actually, if we go back a couple frames and we just go pretty fast, you can see most of the activity does come from the coast, especially from the southern portions of it. You can see how this band of storms right here are right in the right off the coast, more or less near Wilmington. And the next frame, you can see that it's off to the further off to the north here, and in south central portions of North Carolina. So these storms most likely will be coming off from the coast. This is where the isolated tornado threat most likely could be. The areas here along the coast, I do believe, is the main threat for the tornadoes, especially even into the overnight hours here by 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then as this continues to move about, you can see these storms start to gather more and more organization around the tropical system, and this is where this could potentially become a tropical storm and eventually move on out as a full-fledged tropical system. You can see a lot of the thunderstorms are actually surrounding the area of low pressure here with these little bands right within this general vicinity. And as this continues to move about, this will move over land, and this will eventually move over the last bit of land, I should say, and out to sea. And that's where the lesser amounts of impacts we could see from this. So if we take a look at the sustained winds from the HWRF model, this will be giving us a general idea as to how strong the sustained winds are most likely going to be. And if you want a scale for how strong the winds are, the bottom part of your screen right there is the best part to look. So you can see within this instance, not a lot of strong winds here except for stuff along the coast, which is going to be a repeated factor here for any tropical system in the future. You can see how this continues to move about as this starts to really kind of consolidate into a bit more of a damaging wind threat along the coastal Carolina areas, as well as areas from central to eastern portions of the Carolinas with sustained winds in upwards of 15 to 20 miles per hour in some spots. And then even areas from Charleston all the way up towards Myrtle Beach. You can see the winds actually start to amplify in some spots here. Winds in upwards of 39 miles per hour sustained along the coast there. And even as this continues to move about, you can see some of these dark red areas, which can indicate an upwards of 45 miles per hour sustained winds with those storms that are moving into the Carolinas right there, especially into Wilmington. That's where most of the strong damaging winds are going to come off from, is that main line of convection that swirled around the storm. And as this continues to move on through, you can see a lot more storms form, and so that'll create more of a wider impact region. But luckily, this tropical system does start to run out of space with when it comes to impacts on land, and so you can see mainly the last bit of area that will be impacted will be the Outer Banks by 5 a.m. Still could see some tropical storm force winds with that in upwards of 43 miles per hour according to the HWRF model. But then as this continues to move on through, you can see it does run out of real estate and it will head off to sea still as a tropical system, even as a tropical storm, but it doesn't seem as if it'll make all too much impacts. So if we take a look at the GIF here, you can see how this continues to progress, and I even made it last a little bit longer so that you can see how this gets closer and closer to New England. And you can see they don't really get impacted a whole lot by those damaging winds from this tropical system. It's only in upwards of probably 10 miles per hour sustained. You could get gusts higher, but honestly, this tropical system will stay well off to your south, in my honest opinion. And so I really don't think it'll be a huge major contributor for you all, except for rip currents. So if you're out on the beach, highly recommend you don't go far out in the water, if any. I would recommend staying away from it, actually, but there are some people who are crazy enough to do all that, especially surfers. So that'll be it for me in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did like it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the content that I provide. I am thinking about live streaming tonight for the severe weather event later on, especially in the northern Illinois vicinity. So if you guys do want to come out for that, that would be greatly appreciated. Share this video with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. That would also be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.